Okay, welcome to episode 9 of the podcast. So me and Mike for this one, and we discuss all things sort of training techniques, so compound versus isolation, and sort of different methods to improve your bodybuilding. Few little technical hiccups in this one, but nothing that's too disruptive. So full episode comes in just under 29 minutes, and I hope you enjoy. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Okay, so that's us.
Here we are again.
Here we are again. That's us. Made it sound as if like that's all.
Sponsored by Diet Coke.
I fucking wish we were sponsored by Diet Coke. That would be awesome. How much Diet Coke do you think you drink in a day?
In a day?
Yeah.
Well, probably at least 2. Not 3.
Yeah, I'm probably more.
Bottle, couple of cans.
Okay, so it is Good Thursday. What were we going to talk about? Oh yeah, the whole thing of research and textbooks versus anecdote.
Yeah, sort of in the trenches, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, so realistically it's the thing of knowledge from a textbook versus knowledge that you just sort of find.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've both essentially done the same degree.
Yes.
What was it called when you did yours?
I did sport and exercise science.
Yeah, and I did applied sports science.
Yeah.
A little bit before you. Just a touch. But, I mean, you had a lot of the same lectures that I did. Essentially, it was the same course.
Yes.
Just a few different elements. Okay, so we've read lots of papers, looked at a lot of research. Mm-hmm. But I think, and that's more accessible, and obviously textbooks, those sorts of things are now more readily available to people through
100%,
the internet, etc.
Because I mean, I think university access does give you a lot, but at the same time, probably still 80% of it is just public access. You don't need anything.
No.
Actually, read a lot of these papers.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is that they're more readily available, and you see people sort of saying, oh, well, this study shows this. Mm-hmm. And I think what people have got to realise is a study is very, very controlled, and they only tend to look at one element. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, life isn't like that. There's lots of factors that can cloud the issue. I
think, though, one big misconception is that the two are sort of mutually exclusive. You either get all your knowledge from a textbook, or you just get all of it from experience. Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's like a big issue, is that people are like, oh, well, he just reads books, he doesn't actually do it. Whereas probably a lot of people do a bit of both. And I think it's good to have somewhat of an understanding of from a theoretical standpoint.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But then you need something to apply it, because not even so much that studies are unrealistic or that anything like that, but at the same time, there's also a lot of intangibles such as personal preference and lifestyle and things like that.
Totally agree with that. I mean, a couple of things I wanted to say on that was, first one, it was a lecturer that you didn't have. It was a physiology lecturer that I had. I think he retired just as I was finishing my degree. But he always said, education, especially at that level, should teach you to question everything. Mm-hmm. Just because it's in a textbook, well, usually by the time it's in a textbook, that information is a good few years old already. Not saying that some of that information isn't correct, but, there's been new thinking, new research, new this, and things move on. Yeah. So, I mean, he said, to literally question everything.
Well, because I think as well, one of the things with that is, I think the one camera is just off. But anyway, I think one of the things with, when it comes to, I guess, like textbooks and things like that, I think they give you a good base almost.
Yes.
They give you something where you can work on if you're applying it to yourself. Well, it's like, well, here's a guideline, here's a base, and then from there, you can work on your own specifics.
Yeah, exactly. And the other point with what you just said was, and I totally agree, personal preference. And I think personality has got a lot to do with it. So the science might tell you right, this is the best way to train for hypertrophy.
Yes.
So on paper, yeah, great. But if it doesn't float somebody's boat, then they're not going to put the effort into it, and they're not going to get the results.
Yeah, and as well with, like, I guess nutrition, you know, there's a lot of sort of, you know, things on calorie intake or whatever, you know, calories per kilogram or whatever. But at the same time, that can vary wildly.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the thing with studies in general. Like, one of these fucking things that keep coming up every now and again that I'll hear people say is like, you can find a study to support anything, and it's like, right, no. You know, yeah, there are some conflicting studies, but if you actually read them, there are general trends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's normally, you know, say if a study comes out and it sort of goes against everything, look actually deeper into it. You know, because if you just read the abstract, you know, all you get in is like, you know, the author's interpretation of the results.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you want to look at the methods, how they actually, what they did, what they measured, and, you know, how they did it. Was it a blind, you know, was it double blind? You know, there's so many different things, factors
100%.
to look at. And as you say, a lot of people will read an abstract and say, oh, well, look, that paper says that. But
it's like,
if you actually read it
Yeah.
and interpret it yourself.
And even down to, again, I do think they're tremendously useful.
Yes.
But, you know, say they come to a conclusion, and that conclusion might be right for maybe 80% of people, but you are going to have those somewhat outliers. And even, you know, the effect size is so much different on different people, and all you need to do is look at results for that.
Yeah, and also it's so you've got to look at the population that they
absolutely
study. You know, a lot of the time when it's studies on weight training, you know, and there's obviously you can look at a lot of things within that. You know, they might use a population that's completely novice, which usually tends to be that. They're not, because probably guys that have been training, guys and gals that have been training 20 years.
Did you just say gals?
Yeah, you know, I'm just, you know.
Just
males and females.
Yeah, just let's adopt.
Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, you know, it just sort of goes with it. Anyway. See, it's thrown me off now.
You fucked it by saying gals.
I suppose I did, yeah. So anyway, what was I saying?
You have guys and gals that have been training
for 20 years. They're not going to want to do a study because it's going to mess their training up.
Yeah, and even if they do, the actual progress you will observe in that time is quite negligible.
Exactly.
You know, say if you have like a really experienced trainer, it is quite difficult to actually see a significant effect in 8 weeks.
Yeah, it's if you did a study using a population that hadn't weight trained before, you could probably get them to respond by just saying, well, go and tidy the fucking gym up.
Yeah.
So, you know, then you can say, oh, well, actually, tidying the gym up works for hypertrophy. Yeah. So...
No, 100%. But I think then, on the flip side, it is good to have, like you say, that like theoretical knowledge, because otherwise, you know, there's probably a lot of anecdotal sort of stuff that just completely misses the point.
Yeah, and what happens is, so somebody, you know, who they alter their training, maybe their diet, supplements, etc., etc., and all of a sudden, okay, great, look, I'm getting, you know, I'm gaining muscle.
Yeah.
They attribute that gain in muscle to something in particular. They're training, but what about everything else?
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and it's the new style of training I'm doing. Well, no, it's the fact that you're eating a higher amount of protein or whatever.
Or even if it's a new style of training, it could just be. It might not even necessarily be that it's that style of training. It's just that style of training is new.
Yeah, exactly.
It's novel to you.
Yes.
You know?
And that's where people get... So what happens is you've got somebody that's done a lot of volume for a number of years in their training. Then you give them some lower volume, higher intensity work, and and all of a sudden they're gaining. And then it's like, oh, well, it's the higher intensity training. Yeah. Well, no, it's just because you've done something different. The complete opposite would work. So if you'd had somebody doing higher intensity, lower volume work for a long period of time, just switch it up to some higher volume work, and then all of a sudden, they gain. But what happens is they get addicted almost to that new style of training. But it's just because you've done something different. The more advanced you are, the more frequently you have to change your training.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is as well is even down to like exercise selection and things like that, when you get to that sort of level, can maybe make a difference. It's like I was doing X exercise for 10 years and now I switched to Y, and oh my god,
exactly,
so amazing.
And it's it's just the fact that it's different. So it's a novel stimulus, as people like to say. But but
obviously there's many forms of that, because I think people basically use it to attribute some sort of, you need to do more weight or something like that. But there's the phrase novel stimulus encompasses a lot.
Oh god,
100%. Even just training, I guess, pushing yourself harder, that's pretty fucking novel.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. And I think in general, that's what you need to do. As somebody gets more advanced, it's think of ways to make them push harder. So it's not necessarily more weight, more volume, etc. Everyone thinks of more, but it's quite simply making them work to their limit. And there's lots of different triggers to do that with people.
So, question.
Yes.
Then, imagine you have an answer.
Maybe not.
So, say when you have a case where, someone, you're giving them a lot of volume, you're giving them supersets, giant sets, things like that. With your sort of exercise selection, is it a lot of compounds? Is it more isolation to sort of maybe combat any like general fatigue? Do you get what I mean?
Oh, so if you had somebody that was doing higher volume and then you
no. So you have someone who's on a very high volume sort of training program.
Yeah.
Do you sort of err more towards isolation stuff when you're doing like giant sets and things like that? Or
I think you could argue that isolation is full stop is better for bodybuilding. You need to work. Okay, you're doing a bench press, but then you're doing it to work your chest, but then. Depending on how you do the movement, you might only be getting 40 or 50% of that weight actually hitting your chest.
I'm never sold on the whole isolation versus compound thing, because I understand when people fucking say about why compound movements are better, blah blah blah. But at the same time, I've always said, like, okay, so when you do a squat, you say, we'll just say the quad's extending your leg.
Yeah.
When you do a leg extension, it's extending the leg.
Yeah.
It does the same job.
So, as you say, and I totally agree with that, so you could argue, I'm not saying I'm right here, by the way.
We don't need to argue because we agree.
Yeah, okay. But we could argue with somebody else.
Yeah.
That an isolation exercise, you could say, could be better for putting on muscle. And a compound movement, use them closer to the show. So let me explain.
Go on then.
So as you rightly said, when you're squatting and you're trying to target your quads, unless you know exactly what to do, if you're just moving that weight up and down. So if you had 100 kilos, for argument's sake, and depending on how you squat, you could be bringing a lot of other muscle groups into play. Your glutes, your hips, your lower back, even your hamstrings to a certain extent. So out of that 100 kilos, you might only be getting 50 kilos of stress on your quads while you're squatting. Yeah. then you may do a leg extension, which you can say that there might be some other muscle groups into play, like your forearms gripping the seat, etc.
Yeah, but realistically,
it's all quads.
If you fail on a leg extension,
so you could be using 60 kilos on the leg extension, and that's all on your quads. So you could argue in that case that you're getting more stress on the quads out of a leg extension than you are a squat.
Yeah, but even the fact that, say, with taking it away from the math sort of, equation type of thing, it's just a case of, say for instance with leg extensions, there's a lot you can do there to cause more stress, to cause more volume. There's a lot you can do that, maybe requires a touch of imagination, but... Yeah,
I mean, I'd say, for me, and like I said, I've done a lot of movements over the years. I'd consider myself a fairly proficient squatter.
Yeah.
But I built my legs on leg press and leg extensions.
Yeah, I mean, well, you had this question last week, didn't you, about, like, can you train legs with only leg extension and leg curls? It's like, yes.
Yeah, of course you can. It's like, I mean, God... we used to do stupid shit. I used to do leg extensions with your mother stood on the weight stack.
Yeah. Yeah, but then even, there's a lot you can do with, like, partial reps.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Force reps.
Yeah.
That tap into the quads in a certain way that almost squats and these other exercises can't.
Yeah. So you can do, and again, whether you should or not is another debate, but you can do... like some good negatives, force negatives on a leg extension. Try and do that on a fucking squat.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do. You can go to complete failure on a leg extension, which you can on a squat only if you're very bloody good at it.
And even then, it could just be your cardiovascular system that gives out. It's not... The quads might have more in there,
Exactly.
Like you see those old... And I know people take the piss, but... It's fucking Tom Platz, so it doesn't matter. But there's like those videos of him and he's like on the leg extension, he can barely move it like a fucking inch, and it's just like the stress on the quads there and like the feeling that he's going to get in there probably never happens on any other exercise. No,
exactly. But then going back to what I was saying, you could but coming up to a show, you could sort of say, well, use more compounds like squats, etc., which get you breathing heavier, which burn more calories, and it's going to help you potentially lose more body fat. So I'm just saying, is there a case of flipping it completely on its head for the way most people think?
It's not even that. It's just like you say, but with it, I'm not even necessarily concerned about compound or isolation. It's more, is this a good exercise? Is this a bad exercise? Can you get what you want?
100%. And as we've sort of said before, there's some movements. Yeah, you can coach people to make certain movements better for them, and so that they do those exercises and hit what they're supposed to be hitting. But there's some movements that are just horrendous for people, and everyone says, oh, you've got to do the basics, squat, bench, deadlift. No, you don't.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, why? And I will, concede the point of the squat's a great exercise.
Yeah.
It is. For some people, it's a very bad exercise. But, yes, if you were ever put in a position where you could only do one, exercise for legs for the rest of your life, a squat's a pretty fucking good choice. But then at the same time, we don't live in that world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. So, and I'm not saying that some people might get a lot out of squatting, benching, and deadlifting, but it's not a case of you have to do anything.
Oh, 100%. And as well, thinking about more of like a longevity standpoint, the weights that some people will use on a squat that will push themselves to use, it's very impressive, but obviously that comes with more injury risk, with more stress
the
on
thing
other
is,
areas.
You gotta ask yourself the question, it's like, why am I doing this particular exercise? Is it to lift as much weight as I can and look cool, or is it to work the shit out of my muscles?
And even as well, like that's also more the case
G.A.H.
The G.A.H. I will carry on in a minute. I'm just going to get the Sean Connery out of my system. But that is also more the case for that isolation movement to begin with. Because even then, say if you do a good isolation to start, really get the blood in the muscle, blah, blah, blah. Then when you go on to a compound, you might not be moving as much absolute weight.
Yeah, but to your body, it feels like... So
100%.
You've done a leg extension first to failure, then you go on to a squatting movement, whether it's barbell or a machine or whatever. So say, for example, you were really strong and you could use 6 plates aside for 8 to 10 reps, for argument's sake, but then you do the leg extensions first, then you can only use 3 plates aside for 8 to 10 reps. But you're going to failure 8 to 10 reps, so your body doesn't know the difference. All it recognizes is it's gone to failure and it was fucking hard.
Yeah, but also, your back knows, your hips know, your knees know that you're not actually using as much physical load.
Yeah, and they say it's not, again, talking of a squat, if that bar's on your back, you're putting, that weight is loading your spine, and what runs through your spine? Your central nervous system. Yeah. So you're frying your nervous system. If you can make your body think that it's using double the weight when it's less, but that's less strain going on your...
Not even your body, just the muscle
target. Yeah, or your CNS as well.
Yeah.
There was something else I was going to say, but we went off at a tangent again. No, you said something earlier. Go back. Rewind.
I said, do you want to do a podcast in 10 minutes? Should we get ready?
And here we are.
And here we are. Yeah, just one broken fucking camera. And hopefully we're recording.
But also, we've said that the more advanced you are, you need to maybe switch up your training, etc., etc. That's like that's not always a case of changing your exercises per se, although you can do that, but again, I think that's a personal thing. Some people like to do a variety of movements, but if you're good at a particular movement and you get a lot out of it, you can just vary the way that you do that movement. I think...
Oh, right, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So change your time under tension, the number of sets, the number of reps. There's so many variables. Foot position, hand position.
I wouldn't say there's any one compulsory exercise.
No.
Just in like the way there's no compulsory food, there's no compulsory exercise.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't like shoulder press, and it's like, okay. Yeah. Like say, I never shoulder press, and I've always had pretty good shoulders. And I very rarely... Even like when my shoulders were at their best and probably made the quickest improvement.
Yeah, I mean,
there was no pressing.
Yeah, exactly. And I had like years ago. I mean, my shoulders are shit again now, but bad shoulders years ago. So I stopped shoulder pressing. I needed to bring my shoulders up, but I concentrated more on laterals, and lo and behold, they got better.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
But believe it or not, that's an isolation movement.
Yeah, but as well, like I said earlier, it's like, well, abduct, that's what the side delt does. Abduct your arm, right? And the lateral raise is just abduction of the arm.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. This isn't necessarily to say that, heavy training in the low-ish rep range is bad, or the compound movements are bad, or squats are bad, or anything. It's just, there's more than one way to do anything.
Exactly. And if squatting like really heavy floats your boat, great, do it. Because there's nothing worse than, you're going into the gym thinking, oh shit, I just got these shitty little leg extensions to do. Yeah. I want to squat. Well, fucking go and squat. Then, because you're going to give it everything. But if you're thinking going into the gym, it's like, and my program says heavy squats today, and it's like, it's just, I just don't like it. Well, you're going to be negative. You're not going to put the effort in.
And the thing is as well is like, yes, there are some days where you're not particularly feeling it, but if you're not feeling it one day, that's one thing. But if you're not feeling it for 100 days in a row, maybe there is something.
Yeah, and like I say, you could be doing, like, I personally like leg extensions.
Yeah.
But I know. I remember what I was going to say now. Anyway, I'll come back to that.
Okay, go on.
So I like a leg extension, but after a while, a few weeks, I don't get my knees start. I just feel there's not something right in my knees sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
So what I do is, I leave leg extensions for a couple of weeks.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
And maybe just begin with some light leg presses to warm up, etc. And then, lo and behold, my knees are fine. But rather than keep pushing the issue and then, boom, something goes.
Yeah, absolutely. But as well, this is not even a warning against leg extensions. That could just be other factors.
Yeah, 100%. No, but what I was going to say, when you were talking about isolation, compound, etc., and I know this is only one example, but there's probably a few of them. But most people listening or watching this will know who Dorian is.
Maybe.
So, Mr. Olympia for
Former.
6 years. Yeah. Going back a little bit now. 90s, 90s.
Were they all in the 90s?
Yes.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, because Ronnie was 90. Yeah. Carry on.
So, but if you look at the pictures of Dorian, when he was at his best, you could arguably say his quads and his back were his best body parts.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And what did he do? He always did leg extensions first, quads, and he always did that. Those pictures of the old Nautilus pullover, which is now in that machine is in Anth Bale's gym. But yeah, and he did that. So it's 2 isolation movements for those. And is that coincidence? Maybe that those body parts were his better body parts. Okay, and again,
yeah, but then that. I suppose with that, it's not necessarily saying that, leg extensions and pullovers are magical. It's could be just a case of utilizing the isolation first could have just made it so that he could have do those compounds with more connection to the muscle.
Yeah, 100%.
With, potentially less weight that maybe saved his central nervous system and his joints so he could actually train for harder for longer. Like that over time.
Yeah, exactly.
There could be a lot of potential reasons, but regardless, I think there is something to that.
Yes. Yeah.
I do see it more, this whole notion of pre-activation. I'm sort of starting to see that more people sort of...
Yeah, even if it doesn't necessarily have to be, an isolation movement per se. If there's a movement that you really connect with that's considered more of a compound movement, but I do a dumbbell press and I just get it in my chest and nothing else, think it's just then do that first before you do some barbell work or whatever.
I think it doesn't necessarily have to be an isolation movement, but it's just a movement where you can feel the muscle. It activates it really well.
Yeah, that's why...
and it doesn't put a lot of stress on it.
Yeah, that's why I like to do some... Maybe before you go on to a main exercise, I'm not going to call it a compound, but just to do some higher rep stuff first. Yeah. Because you're in total control of that weight and, you can work the target muscle a little bit better. Or some like time under tension stuff that... It just connects you with that body part, doesn't it? Okay. You're going to use it more on those more explosive compound type movements.
Absolutely. Cool. Thank you very much. We should do this again sometime.
We're done. We're done.
Yeah, we're done. That was
cool. That's
just under half hour.
That's cool.
Awesome. I'm going to go see what was wrong with my camera. And then...
So it'll be fixed for next time?
I fucking hope so. That'll be. Thank you for listening.